pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will begin with roll call. Bonnie Benz.
Here.
Sherry Bowman.
Here.
Mercedes Evans is not in attendance. Michelle Forbes.
Here.
Jennifer Hoover.
Here.
I'm here. Alyssa Packer. Emily Smith.
Here.
And Leah Levy is not in attendance. At this point in the meeting, we open the floor for public comment. If you have any comments that you would like to share, please address the podium, come up to the podium, make sure the microphone is on, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Saba Alamayu. I live at 2502 Market Street, a newbie here in Camp Hill, but a lifelong Cumberland County resident. Council members, I invite you all to join us in eliminating children exposure to secondhand smoke at local public parks and playgrounds by participating in an initiative, a no-cost initiative with Young Lungs at Play to encourage tobacco-free parks and playgrounds programs supported by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Currently, there's no ordinance in play at any of our local parks or recreational areas. Young Lungs at Play is, again, a cost-free program that supports communities in efforts to protect the environment and the health of all residents, particularly our youth. It's easy to participate, and did I say cost-free? In Young Lungs at Play, the first step is to create an initiative and or resolution. If we have passed that deadline for an ordinance, it will prohibit the use of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes and vaping in parks, playgrounds, or where children are at play. Young Lungs at Play provides signs to be posted in designated tobacco-free areas. The signs are attractive, self-enforcing, and promote positive tobacco-free messaging. The policy initiative helps to limit exposure to dangerous secondhand smoke and unattractive tobacco litter. I employ you to help me and participate with Young Lungs at Play to help and really push this healthy initiative forward. I'm happy to volunteer my time to help push ordinance and to really just get this pushed through, as there's nothing standing right now at any of our public parks or recreational area. I'm also happy to provide contact information for Young Lungs at Play. They provide sample letters and ordinance, free park signs, public media as well, because a lot of the surrounding areas all participate in Young Lungs at Play. They're on the honor roll. Unfortunately, Camp Hill is one of the only ones that is not. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to your comments.
Thank you. And we'll follow up with you for more information. Our recreation director is not here tonight, but I do believe that we already limit tobacco products in our park. Have you found that?
On the website is not an initiative. You cannot have guns or an axe, but you can have
okay.
Tobacco products.
Well, we'll definitely look into that and be in touch.
Yes.
If you could just make sure before you leave that Julie has your contact information.
Sure.
Thank you
for your time.
Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Coons. I live at 1422 Market Street. My husband and I are the only property owners living in that row of homes that was damaged 7.5 months ago. Now, I know that the property is sold. It still says pending online, but I've spoken to the new owners, and I'm very optimistic. But I do want to encourage you to look at what happens when an incident like this occurs, because it is, if you had been in my place, you would have thought, who's running the show? Because it was so sporadic. I know that my neighbor received money in October, but the engineers didn't come till November 8th, didn't get a report till November 29th. Then the houses went up for sale January 12th. It has been, at best, a very confusing situation and a very unpleasant one for us. And the last thing I'd like to say is I've become the face of that block. 4 times this week, and you can only imagine how many times in the last 4 months. Excuse me, I have been approached with questions, and they're usually four comments. What's happening? The next one, I can't believe the borough is letting us go. And I thought you would want to hear that because I've heard that more than once. The third one, you need to get a lawyer. The fourth one, you need to go to the media and bring the media back here to take pictures. That's not me. I don't want to be difficult, but I do want to see things change, and it could happen again. If you had a bad fire, if you had a garage collapse, you can't just let it go willy-nilly wherever it goes, because that appears to be the way it happened with this. And my thought was, who's running the show? So I thank you for giving me the time to make these remarks. I think I sent everyone in Borough Council a memo back in August. I want to thank the borough manager for getting the tarps put back up when it was so cold. And I want to thank the codes officer for addressing my concerns about how it looked there.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Good evening. My name is Kim Hoover, and I wanted to acknowledge all the work that the council is doing. Appreciate everything that you do. I know it's volunteer work and a lot of effort goes into it. And I just thought I would highlight that today is International Women's Day. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Hey, Reed Nixon, 2811 Fairview Road, here to address the non-maintenance down in Seabrook Park. Again, you guys are calling it a riparian buffer, but I'm here to comment that who will watch the watchman, because that was not what was passed. A riparian buffer was not passed down there. This is a perfect time to come down and see the lack of maintenance that's going down there, though. At the end of winter, because nothing was mowed down there all last year. In even what they're saying, a riparian buffer would be maintained at 10 to 16 inches. They're not mowing the grass. There's no way to mow grass that's this big. It'll just mat and that. But leaves weren't removed, sticks weren't removed, weeds weren't removed. The whole place is, and the trees that were actually approved to be planted and the only things that proved to be maintained were not maintained either. And so like everything down there, again, all of you, 2 of you so far have come down and meet. I will be in touch. We're getting closer to mowing season here. And that's definitely something that like needs to be addressed here. If we don't want this to go further, I will start rallying my neighbors up starting right now, taking the winter off. Hopefully it gave you guys time to reflect on what's going on there. But this is not something that was approved correctly. I've come in, I've talked about it multiple times. Not one single time has it been met with a serious answer other than, you know what you want to do there. And I know you know what you want to do there. But we need to get this addressed. And if a riparian buffer is to be a non-maintained riparian buffer that is to be installed at that location at the park, it has to go up for public comment. And again, we don't want this to keep going up, because I'm going to escalate until that gets proved correctly or it gets mowed. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Other comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on then to the agenda approvals. This is the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any changes needed? All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the agenda approvals are set. The first item on the agenda then is the manager's report. Sarah.
Good evening. I have just a few things that I added in my report that will not be mentioned in other reports this evening. We are again enrolling with the Pennsylvania Department of Labor's My Work Crew program. This is a team of 4 special needs students who will be assisting our staff this summer with projects around the borough for 7 weeks. And I want to give give kudos to our office manager, Tammy, who also recently provided a job shadowing opportunity for one of the students, and they got to experience an afternoon in the borough office. So the directors of this program have commented to us how few municipalities are willing to open their doors for this program. So I just want to keep mentioning that because I feel really proud of our staff for doing that. Speaking of staff items, we held a summer jobs party, and if you missed it, sorry, you missed some hoppin' music. We had prizes, food, and lava lamp, because that's how cool Audrey and I are. It was a summer jobs party for teens and adults who might be interested in applying for a position with our summer staff, including lifeguards, excuse me, snack shack workers, and camp counselors. So there's still a few positions open, but we definitely did got some new faces in who might not have heard about it. And I appreciate Audrey's creativity. Audrey is currently in Vancouver, so, but she knows that we appreciated that she took the lead on that. Our HATS project is our Eisenhower Walkway project. It's being funded through a HATS Regional Transportation Plan grant. Excuse me. And it is currently confirmed for bidding by PennDOT on June 15th. So we're a little bit at their mercy at this point in the project. But tonight's meeting, you will notice that there are two final easements that we are acquiring, temporary construction easements from two property owners along the bypass area that are involved in the project. And one of the biggest items on our agenda tonight is the Climate Action Plan, and I want to thank our Climate Action Plan Task Force for the work that they have done over the past year and a half. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but this is a group of dedicated community leaders, some of whom are here this evening, plus our partners at Messiah University, who have contributed many hours to prepare a data-driven, attainable plan for council's review. The project started with funding from Pennsylvania DEP's Local Climate Action Plan program, and Messiah has provided internships on their own after the state project was concluded. So our task force chairman, Tim Hawkins, is doing a presentation tonight, which is the introduction of the draft plan, which will then be posted on our website for public review and comment. And we'll say these dates a few times during the evening. The task force is hosting two events in April. First, a town hall Q&A session on April 3rd at 6 o'clock, and they will present an overview of the plan to that group and answer questions about the plan. And they're also hosting a community shred day so that you can dispose of your unwanted documents that you don't want to put out in the trash. That will be held here at Borough Hall on April 29th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. So thanks, Climate Action Plan Task Force.
Okay, and that is the next item on the agenda, is our presentation by the Climate Action Plan Task Force Chairman Tim Hawkins. And we're going to be looking at our devices only because we don't have it on the TV screen, so I just don't want anyone in the audience to think that we are being disrespectful if we're looking at our devices.
Completely ignoring me, huh?
We rearranged the big screen so that you all have a great view, but we are currently having a minor technical difficulty with our screen.
Okay. You all hear me? Okay, great.
But make sure you speak loudly so the camera can hear you too.
Will do. No one's ever accused me of speaking softly. So thank you. Well, thanks a bunch. Again, my name is Tim Hawkins. I am the chair of the Campbell Climate Action Task Force. Next slide, please. So the task force, you can see the membership there. Several council members as well as residents of the community. And as Sarah mentioned, we could not have done this without our partnership with Messiah University and also DEP as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of the planning, this is automated, so, or not automated, but yeah, so you can sort of step through them there. So this was initially initiated by the Planning and Zoning Committee, and as Sarah mentioned, it is also associated with the Pennsylvania DEP Local Climate Action Program, so or Plan Program. So we started back in October of 2021 to get the task force together. So it's been about a year and a half now, and we have partnered with Messiah University. The main parts that we've done, you can see on the inventory, or the slide there, was to inventory the greenhouse gas emissions. You can't reduce your emissions until you know what they are, so that was the first part. We've conducted survey and focus groups to get a sense of what the community feels on some of these issues. And where we are right now in this process is we've actually developed the climate action plan that we're looking to get approval from in the coming months from the council. After that, we would, in theory, implement, and then we would monitor and verify results moving forward there. Next slide, please. So why are we doing this? I'm sure I won't, if you want to go into the nitty-gritty details, you can take a climate class that several of us in the room teach. But, you know, increased rainfall, increased flooding, especially around here, increased drought. Next slide, please. Ultimately, it's a money issue, both from a, that's good there. So both from a, how much does this cost to sort of deal with the issues that we're having, as well as, I would argue, potential savings from some of the stuff that we're potentially proposing in here. And it ultimately comes down to a people issue as well. Okay, next slide. You may have to, if you just scroll, there should be a little animation. You press play there. So this is an animation of Cumberland County on the left. Yeah, there you go. So this is July average maximum temperature through time, 1950 to 2095 under high emission scenarios. And you can see by the end of this, when we get to 2095, the average daily maximum temperature in Cumberland County will be over 100 degrees. That's the average. That doesn't include the days that are 110, 115. So I think seeing it sort of in an animated purpose like this is sometimes a little shocking. Just let it run to the end and then we can go again. Next slide, please. So the purpose here, acknowledge the realities and risks of climate change. So these are the purpose of the climate action plan. Respond to climate change at the local leverage by, at the local level by leveraging collective knowledge. There's a lot of expertise both on the task force and the community in general. Quantify the borough's greenhouse gas emissions, and then ultimately recommend technological, behavioral, and policy actions to meet the greenhouse gas reduction goals that we've laid out here. Next slide. So those goals. All right, so the goals are by 2030, a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for the borough, and by 2050, an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for the borough. So those are the goals. Those are in line with both national, federal goals. They're also in line with state goals, and they're also in line with sort of scientific best understanding of what needs to happen in order to address the issue that we're talking about here. To make that happen, the first step would be to establish an implementation committee. We could probably come up with a better name, but that is different from the task force. The task force was designed to get us to this point. To move beyond this point, we need expertise and people that know the ins and outs of local and state government and utilities and, you know, that purchasing, all sorts of other areas of expertise. So that would be the first step. In order to get there, we would decrease fossil fuel vehicle travel, electric vehicles. I'll give you some specific examples in a bit. Overall, increase solar power production, increase renewable electricity purchasing, and reduce energy use intensity, right? So converting to a heat pump, for example, as opposed to a gas or oil furnace. Next slide, please. So here's the inventory. Again, you can't reduce your emissions until you know what they are. The main components here, the red would be residential energy, the orange is commercial energy, the gray is industrial energy, and the green is transportation. So that makes up about 80% of our close to 75,000 metric tons of CO2 that we produced in 2019. So 2019 is our baseline year. Next slide, please. Broken down a little bit, we got the same color scheme. You can see that residential electric and residential natural gas are the two main sources at the residential level. Electric and natural gas also at the commercial level. And then transportation, just those are vehicle miles traveled, and most of which are gasoline based. Next slide, please. So in terms of the menu, that's the main component of what we've actually produced for you today. The menu represents possible, and I want to stress that word, possible action items with the supporting information to get the ball rolling. This is not intended to be do this and you will be done. There's a lot that still needs to be done, but this should get the ball rolling. And I want to make a point that it is not a mandate in the sense that like you do not have to do this. It is a menu items of which you can pick and choose the things that make sense at the time that it makes sense. So there may be incentives that we don't know about yet. There may be incentives that go away that exist currently. And so this allows some flexibility to say, okay, well, we can do this thing right now, and this is the result that we would likely see from doing that action. And I'll give you some examples. There are 3 tiers to these things. This action menu, tier 1 being the things that's going to yield the most emissions cuts, down to lower tiers in tier 3. And then it should allow for flexibility. So just by way of example here, I've listed the, excuse me, the tier 1 actions. If you've looked through the actual document itself, there's on the order of 50 or so suggestions in there. So these are just some of the highlights. So tier 1 actions for the residential would include an annual conversion of 4% of residential heat sources to high efficiency air source heat pumps, so making home heating at the residential level more efficient, and installation of solar on 20% of residential households by 2030. Next slide, please. Commercial tier 1 actions would be to convert 20% of commercial heat sources to high efficiency air source heat pumps, again, getting away from the natural gas and oil that typically drives a lot of these things, and to have 100% conversion of lighting to LEDs by 2030 at the commercial level. Next slide, please. For the industrial sector, 30% of industrial rooftop space covered in solar by 2030, and 50% of municipal rooftop space covered in solar by 2030 as well. Next slide. And then transport. So these are the 4 big wedges that we saw on the pie chart there. In terms of transport, 10% of all vehicles by 2030, vehicle miles traveled from electric vehicles up to 90% by 2050. Some of that's going to happen regardless of what we do, because that's just where the market is moving these days. Increase the number of available public charging stations from 2 to 10, and 25% increase of multimodal transportation. That's a fancy way of saying biking and walking, right? So making that easier for people so that they're not using their automobiles necessarily. Next slide, please. This is one example of implementing some of those tier 1 actions, and what you can see is sort of a reduction. This set of actions, again, this is not the only way to do this. This is one of many examples of how we could get to this point. But this gets us to our 30% reduction. So picking and choosing some of those menu items, again, this is just one of a nearly infinite number of different ways that we could potentially get to this point and to our goal of 2050. Next slide. So next steps. As Sarah mentioned, we've got a public engagement session scheduled for April where we hope to get feedback from the broader community to see if they have any questions or comments. We're hoping that if things go well, this body will consider adopting the Climate Action Plan in May. The purpose of tonight was to sort of get you guys out in front of this and let us know any feedback that you may have for us over the next few months. And then beyond that, assuming it gets approved, formally establish that Climate Action Committee, implement those actions, inventory again, and then update the CAP. This is not a static document. We need to assess our progress. Probably 3 to 5 years would be a time to inventory again, and then sort of assess where we are. So this, in theory, is an ongoing process to get us to where we need to be. So with that, next slide, end it, and I'd be happy to take any questions that anybody has. I would also like to officially thank the folks that showed up sort of as support. Again, it's been a year and a half of a lot of work, especially to the Messiah folks. Unfortunately, Brandon, who's been sort of the super spearheader of all this, got sick yesterday, so he wasn't able to be here, but he was planning on being here otherwise. But happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
2 things, Tim. First, can you share a little bit about what other communities, particularly maybe those nearby, what they're doing, what they've implemented? And then secondly, if you could make an ideal menu, is it fair to ask you what that would be?
You can ask, sure. Yeah, so I did a little research because I sort of anticipated that we might get this question. And Chris is actually the director, I don't know if that's the proper word, but the manager of the DEP program. But I believe in Pennsylvania, 37 communities have gone through this process now. 64. Oh, I'm way off. You need to update your website. So yeah, 64 communities. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, across the country that have done it. Locally, I was involved. I work at Shippensburg University, and I basically did the same process for Cumberland County. So they have a climate action plan that I know. I think they consulted with Sarah about at times. Harrisburg and Susquehanna Township, Lancaster and Warwick Township, Derry Township. Carlisle's been sort of way out ahead of this in that sense, and York City have also been in the program. Anybody else local I missed? Really local? York. Okay. Cool. There we go. We're making progress. You're already checking stuff off the list here. In terms of an ideal list, I mean that. So I think this is where that climate action, the next step comes in. I don't personally have the expertise in terms of like, what does it take? I mean, in my mind, yeah, let's just throw solar on every municipal building. Why wouldn't we do that? But I'm sure it's harder than that. Yeah. Right. So I mean, every school should have it, right? I mean, the Giant Center should have it. Not the Giant Center, but the Giant Shopping Center. But I'm sure that's more complicated than that. So I mean, those seem like easy things to do. Certainly, some of the existing stuff that I know we've talked about with the bike plan and making sure that's fully implemented, that'll reduce those vehicle miles. So those would be sort of the big ticket items that I think come up on the list there.
Thank you. Just a fun comment. Other than being with my relatives, I have not been in a room with 3 Hoovers that have all participated on this task force, and we are of no relation. So, but just a shout out to the Hoovers who have participated. Thank you.
I have a question about the transportation percentage. Does that include transportation like cars passing through the borough on the bypass?
Yeah. So it depends on how you count it. So there's several ways to go about doing this. So one way of doing it is sort of you operate at the county level, and then you make some assumptions about. You can choose to include vehicles that travel through, or trips that only start in Camp Hill, or trips that end in Camp Hill, or trips that start and end in Camp Hill. So what we ultimately ended up, so there's lots of different ways you can do it, and they'll all get you similar numbers. I probably shouldn't say this, but you can almost guarantee that all the numbers are going to be wrong because they're all estimates of some sorts. The key thing is if you do the same thing 5 years from now, does the number go up or down?
Gotcha.
So that's the key part. What we ultimately ended up doing is surveying the community. And so based on those survey results, we extrapolated it out based on vehicle miles traveled, types of car, number of cars in the household, that type of information, and that's where we came up with our number. Yeah, good question though.
Any other questions? Well, I would like to thank you for your presentation and also for everyone in the room and those who aren't here who were involved in developing the plan. And it will be posted on our website, as Sarah said, and we just encourage everyone to take a look at that and share feedback. And as Tim mentioned, we hope to consider this at the May meeting. And a reminder, April 3rd, Town Hall, 6 p.m., question and answer period in here. And we'll publicize that for you. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, the next item then on the agenda is the reports of committees and board liaisons, and we have Michelle Forbes tonight filling in for our Public Safety Chair, Mercedes Evans. Michelle.
Thanks. I'd like to start with the mayor's report.
All right, well, thank you. Real quickly, the police department handled 650 calls in the month of February. Fire department handled 23 calls, spent 52 hours on those calls. Fire department training, we've done gas emergency training, which was done by UGI just last evening. And we're in the process of doing our annual hazmat refresher training that we do annually, obviously. Also, we're always looking for volunteers. We provide all the training that you would need, so anybody interested, Monday evening, 7 p.m., please stop by, and we can get you started. Thank you.
The chief, no. That's the chief's report. He does it on behalf of the, There's just your monthly report. The committee's monthly report.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so the committee asked Chief Marchison to limit the parking on one side of North 29th Street over near Market Street for safety reasons and to allow other vehicles to pass through. And the chief and the Public Works Director are going to visit the site and review that request. We were also contacted about vandalism at Schaefer Park. Public Works painted over some of the inappropriate images, but sanding will still need to be done on the surfaces, and that is planned to be finished. We will be making a motion to approve the school district. They have a 2-year memorandum of understanding agreement with the Camp Hill Police Department, and there will be a request to renew the proposal for the period of March 8th, 2023 to March 8th, 2025. And we will also be making a motion to approve G.A. Smith Towing LLC for the towing services. And I just wanted to clarify that for the towing services, it's a recommendation that we have that fills certain criteria that we require a towing company to provide. But you are always free to contact and retain any towing service that you would like to have. And I think that's the end of our report. Any questions?
Yes, please.
Thanks.
Thank you for clarifying that question, because I know it was brought up via email. Yes, they can, though that's only assuming that that towing company can get there on time in a timely manner, correct? Okay. Were we anticipating only receiving one bid, or?
I would have anticipated more. The last time this process was used about 5 years ago, we had multiple bids. Now, we did update the criteria and some of the standards, and I think that may have discouraged some bidders that felt maybe some of the requirements that we put in place were going to be too difficult for them to meet. Maybe in particular the timeliness of the response, because we know of several towing services that have previously expressed interest in getting involved with us in providing this service, but the timeliness of their response was a problem with some people that had experience with them.
Was it more important to have updated criteria versus, my understanding, the policy previously said that the police department would rotate between two? And now with only having one company, that makes it that impossible, so.
That's right. The last time out of the several proposals that were received, the top two were selected, and they basically alternated every other month. One was designated, and they alternate monthly. The second service that we have been using did not even submit a proposal this time.
My last question, I was looking at the pricing, so it seemed like there was a flat amount of $125 for like the top two services, but then there was $85 and up for the other two services. Is it likely, like, since there's no max amount? So.
I think that they would tell us, meaning the person that proposed this, that it's contingent, somewhat contingent on the complexities of any particular situation that they're towing, and it would basically, I think, boil down to the equipment that they need and the amount of time that they need, and possibly also distance towed. But I think they addressed the distance issue in there. I think there was a per mile fee if it went any place other than back to their storage facility.
Okay.
But I just want to add, it's my understanding that the towing company would communicate the cost.
Yeah.
Like, it's not gonna be that we'll to let you know when you show up to pick up your car, that they would be told beforehand, and if it was something that someone felt was unreasonable, right?
I understand. It's
Yeah.
just, it's obviously been communicated that it's the same towing company that has had previous problems, and charging customers too much was one of those issues, if I remember, so.
And part of the requirement was that they needed to have a piece of paper that
On
they would
site.
hand, yeah,
Okay.
that you would get handed and say, these are our rates,
Okay.
so.
Just to follow up on the timeliness, if you have your own roadside assistance plan, and they could get there in a reasonable time, that wouldn't be, you can use your own provider that's covered by your
Yes.
insurance. Also, if it's going to take longer, if your vehicle is not impeding traffic, you don't need to move it immediately, correct?
That's correct. If it can be off the roadway,
Yeah.
we're not in any rush to,
So you're not
have
forcing
it
anyone
towed.
to use a towing service to immediately remove it unless it is like blocking traffic in a way that's dangerous?
yes.
Okay.
So one more question. I know in the past also one of the problems was that people didn't realize how much was being charged to store the car at the towing company site. So that is part of the list
Yeah,
of
that would
costs.
be included in the price list, which
Okay.
we're requiring them to actually have copies of that to give to their clients.
Okay. And so one more thing, and I can't remember the answer to this. If you have an individual that was in an accident, they utilize the towing service, will the towing service drop their car off at their house if it's within the same distance as the towing companies or not?
Yes, I think that the towing service will tow it wherever you want to go. However, there might be some payment requirements before they do that, as opposed to storing the vehicle in their secure storage area.
Okay,
Okay. Other items? Yeah, did you want to, Michelle, did you want to mention the other items on the agenda?
I think you did.
The civil service rules?
Oh, I
just-
did not.
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh, you
mention
didn't?
the
I thought
civil
you did
service.
mention it.
No, I did
I had a question about the
MOU.
MOU and I had a question about the civil service. Do you want to say something about the civil service before I ask?
I was gonna say, yeah. Oops, sorry, I have two different things that I wrote things on. Yeah, we will, on this, I recommend approval of the updated civil service rules and regulations.
Yeah, so if I just wanted to ask, yeah, and then I have a question about the MOU.
Okay.
Can someone share with us, like, of the latest regulations, what were some of the substantive changes, if there were any?
Yes.
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay. Several changes. Actually, a couple of them actually came from the Civil Service Commission, one of which was to limit the terms of Civil Service Commission members from 6 to 4 years. That was at their request. We also recommended to the commission modification of the qualifications required for officers to be eligible to take a promotional exam for sergeant. And what we did there was we allow, if this is passed, and the commission agreed to this, would allow previous police service in another certified Pennsylvania Police Department to count as service time toward their eligibility to take a promotional exam, which before it was only Camp Hill PD time counted as that eligible years of service. The application form would now, it will say in the rules and regs what is being done on a practical basis now. When someone applies for employment to take the exam, the application will be filed with the police department. The current regs say it would have been filed with the Civil Service Commission themselves, and they agreed that that was not practical for them to be the body collecting those. The passing score for the examination process was changed from 75 to 70%. And the residency requirement was changed from 15 to 20 miles. That had also been discussed several times at the Public Safety Committee, who also supported that change.
When was it last updated?
Pardon me?
When was it last updated?
I think it was last updated around 2011 or something like that, over 10 years ago.
I have a question about the MOU, and then,
Yeah.
did you say something about the police
Do you wanna mention
manual
that?
too?
Just that we won't be
Oh,
discussing it today.
yeah. Okay, do you want to do this first, or do you want me
I'll
to?
ask about the MOU. I'll ask about the MOU, which I think you already said something about it.
Yeah, she did.
I'm going to recommend tabling
The
Can I-
police
the
manual.
police manual
Okay.
until
Okay,
in the
then,
future.
until then, regarding the MOU with the school district, I was just curious that with the MOU expiring today, what would have happened if the dates would not have aligned?
I thought of that for the expiration date, too.
What I think would have happened was that the council would simply say, we wish to continue with the existing MOU until we address changes, but I'm sure the solicitor would have a better solution if there is one.
And I understand there weren't any, I was looking at the school district minutes, there weren't any substantive changes to that MOU, correct?
No, it's essentially the same language, just it needs to be renewed every 2 years.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more
Oh, sorry.
question. So regarding the comment you made with regard to the civil service changes, currently we have police officers that would be hired on from other communities. So we've not allowed them to take promotional exams up until this point, even though they might have had 10, 12 years in the same position somewhere else? And was that standard practice for all communities, or?
I think that traditionally it's been standard practice amongst police, but other places besides us have started modifying that requirement. So we think that that doesn't recognize some of the skill and abilities and experience that officers have from other departments. Right now, we have 2 officers who had 4 or 5 years at Harrisburg City PD before they came here. Another new officer who had 3 years in another Dauphin County department. Another officer who came from the city of Baltimore. So we want to recognize that
Yeah,
experience.
my only question, concern would be if we have a very specific budget that we're, and a title for a police officer position that we are seeking, if we're going to allow them to then take a test for a promotion.
There has to be a vacancy that
Right.
they would fill. It wouldn't be that they could just get promoted if they took the test
Correct.
and passed it.
Okay.
There would have to be a
Correct.
vacancy.
Okay.
That's based on our needs, it just doesn't automatically allow them to elevate
Okay.
their current rank.
Okay. I was thinking budget.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing. The next public safety meeting is on March 15th at 4 PM instead of the regularly scheduled meeting.
Thank you. So the next item then on the.
I was wondering, are we skipping this recommend advertising the ordinance to place the stop signs?
No.
Okay. I was just wondering.
I was organized.
It's hard to be a substitute.
I know, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. No, there we are. Why didn't I put that?
It's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, to recommend advertising an ordinance to place stop signs at Enfield, Rutland, and Arlington roads at those Ts.
Those are T streets.
Yeah, they're T streets.
Okay, the next item on the agenda then is Public Works. Bonnie? I'm sorry. Jennifer, Public Works.
And I'm so glad to have taken that. We have so much fun every month in our Public Works Committee. So we just met yesterday. Council just received our minutes this afternoon, so forgive us, but they are not included. They were not included in the packet materials for that reason. And we are rescheduling our April meeting to April 11th at 9 a.m. Sarah and Mike make my reporting much easier because Sarah shared some information already, and Mike provides information as his engineering report. So before I turn it over to Mike for more detail about the Chesapeake Bay reduction plan, pollution reduction plan, Sarah had already mentioned about the temporary construction easements for which we will be compensating two residents $1,100 each. Mike will speak about the curb ramp projects also. But just briefly, I just wanted to point out that because the minutes are not in the packet, just to highlight that we talked about a variety of topics, including those just mentioned, but we also talked about the Seabrook Park Stream Restoration Project which the Stormwater Authority is still reviewing landscape options, but hopefully that will be all tied up and approved as soon as next Tuesday before that gets on to the next step. We also continue to make progress on the Market Street Streetscape project and have a bid date potentially coming this spring to get that project underway. And also we are reviewing two proposals we received regarding our design feasibility study to improve connectivity along the bypass. So more details will be in the minutes regarding that. Lastly, before I turn it over to Mike, I did just want to respond to public comment that was offered earlier this evening regarding the maintenance of the riparian buffer down at Seabrook Park, down along Connedigwinet Drive. We have addressed that topic on multiple Creek Road, on multiple instances, and there is an operations and maintenance manual that prescribes the Public Works Department's responsibilities of maintaining that land, and that is done in accordance with that plan. And additionally, that what we consider that area, Mike can speak better to this, but it's important to bring up tonight also to highlight that the pollution reduction plan before us includes a variety of best management practices, one of which is this very particular area, for which we receive MS4, your municipal sewer stormwater, missing an S, I think, or something. System, thank you, MS4 requirements. So again, it is a BMP for which you receive credit, and it is maintained in accordance with our O&M manual. Okay.
And just to clarify too, we did vote on that at a public meeting. Prior council, not this current composition of council, but prior council did vote to plant those trees at a prior council meeting.
Yes, so with that, Mike, thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with an update on the Seabrook Park sanitary sewer upgrades, the pump station, the force main. The line under Cumberland Boulevard has been installed, and the fixed pumps are back in service for the time being. We've had no further payment applications or negotiations with Insituform, the lining contractor. I think that will come back at some point, but we're kind of in the eye of the hurricane this month as far as that contract's concerned. So the ball is in their court, and we will react to whatever their next steps are. The pump station building itself, the equipment has been procured through CoStars with the generator coming, I think, the end of this month. HRI, the other contractor who's under contract to build the building and put in the equipment, is anticipated to start in about April. So there will be some construction in Seabrook Park throughout the summer. We're going to work hard with the contractor to keep their equipment and their materials and their area of disruption limited as much as we can to sort of that northern side, away from the entrance to the pool. But they may have to take a few parking spaces to lay down materials and those sorts of things. We'll try and keep that as minimal as we can. On to transportation projects, we have received bids for the 2023 curb ramp replacement project. This is the one that received a $100,000 grant from DCED last year. We bid the project with some alternates so that we could adjust how much work we awarded to fit the budget. I have two different options in my report, but that's been resolved since the report came out. We do now have all the paperwork in order for the low bidder, Porter Concrete, and we're asking that council authorize award of the bid to Porter Concrete in the amount of $105,860. That's for the base bid, bid alternate 1, and bid alternate 2. And we would ask that that motion be contingent upon receiving their bonds and insurance. Stormwater projects, Jennifer mentioned the Chesapeake Bay Pollutant Reduction Plan. We've talked about this a few times now. Last month, we had a discussion about it at council meeting, and we opened the floor for public comment. It's also been advertised and has been available for public comment for, I think, over 40 days. Requirement is 30. So we received no comments. And at this point, we're asking for approval of that plan as drafted. Excuse me. I also have a section in my report about subdivision and land development plans. Pardon me. But understand that's been moved off of the agenda for this evening, so that part doesn't apply. Lastly, we have a proposal, which we just talked about yesterday morning at Public Works Committee meeting for the 2023 paving project. And we're asking for approval in the amount of $49,700 to do design and bidding and construction oversight for the pavement project for 2023.
You said 49,700?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions? I have one final comment, but any questions?
Let him go get water.
I know, well, yeah. Don't ask Mike.
I was going to say, I have a question, but not for Mike. So now that we're not doing this streetscape project for this lake that we had started to in the beginning, do you know what's going on at the corner of?
Oh, 19th and Market?
Yes, and when there will be a working sidewalk and all of that will get?
I'll defer to Sarah.
To Sarah, right? Not to Mike.
That,
Go get.
that sidewalk is part of an active land development plan. So as long as they're continuing to work on the overall plan, we can't necessarily demand when they're going to repair that sidewalk. They were, I think, waiting a little bit for the borough to work through all the details of our streetscape plan, but they were promptly advised, once you made that decision, that that was not going to be part of the streetscape project, and they are at will to do that work whenever they're prepared to do it. So I can't make them go any faster, is the short version.
But it's like the going up 19th and then across Market.
Correct.
Right?
That's all part of their overall project.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I just wanted to lastly just note, though, that the minutes are not in the packet. Our Public Works Director does provide a report with the assistance of our other Public Works staff. So it does highlight the number of projects that Mike did touch upon and many more other things. And I just found it impressive that we're already planning for the 2026 paving season. Lester, very proactive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Community, Business, and Government Relations.
Hello. I do that just to crack you up, Sarah. Okay, I don't have a lot of updates, but I have a couple. First off, Spring Fling is coming up in a couple weeks. It is Saturday, March 25th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The event will feature shopping, dining, live music, a pop-up farmers market, yard games, Irish dance performances, and the Recreation Department will also be holding the Bunny Extravaganza during the event. Also, today, apparently, I don't know if anyone checked, Chef de Crepe opened on Market Street, so go get your crepes. I'm very excited. I said I was going this morning, and I did not go this morning. And then Chop Shish, which is where Zags used to be, is apparently also opening very soon. The farmers market is growing and preparing for the new season. And now I have it on my paper somewhere, and I don't know where it is. May 16th, I think, is when it starts.
Kim is shaking her head
Yes,
yes.
correct? There you go. There are currently 19 vendors signed up for the farmer's market this year, and those numbers are still growing. And there's going to be special events like every month, like once a month during the market. So it's growing, it's very exciting. Everyone's excited. Also, the borough has an updated logo that you may have seen a little bit. It's coming out on some of our website, some things like that. I did that. It's blue. I hope everyone likes it. It's a soft opening. Today's the day that I'm telling everyone. It's out there. It's been rolling out slowly. Is Julie showing it to everyone? Oh, Colton's wearing it?
It's really very similar, almost indistinguishable from our current one, just blue.
It's just blue and it has less swirls in it. It's not significantly different. Yes, and the mailing list. We have a new borough e-newsletter that is going to come out monthly. The first one just came out the other day. Please go onto the borough website to sign up. It has like the top level things that you need to know from the different department heads for each month. So instead of having to read the whole packet to find out all of the information, you can pick out the things that are most interesting to you and get it emailed right to your inbox. So please sign up for that. And I think that's it for my community business and government relations report, but I am also Mercedes Parks and Rec. So I'm gonna roll right into that.
That sounds good.
All right, so for Parks and Rec, I have a couple notes, and I realize Audrey's not here, Mercedes is not here. It's all on me right now. We held, as Sarah said, we held our summer jobs party in February and it went well, but we are still accepting applications until all the positions are filled. As I also said, the Bunny Extravaganza is March 25th. There is registration for that online. Camp registrations and pool memberships are both available online, but I have been asked to highlight the fact that Siebert Park Day Camp is full for all weeks already. Children can be placed on the waiting list, so sign up for the waiting list. And, oh yeah, okay, I gotta go back to this. Yes, on the back side. So for Parks and Rec tonight, there's 2 action items that we will have. The first is a donation of a pool pass for Frederickson Library for their summer reading program. I think that's what it's for. And then the second is to authorize the sale of items advertised on Municipid in the total amount of $655. If you remember, last month we talked about advertising them on Municipid. These were things in the snack shack at the pool, and we're switching over to air fryers, so they're getting rid of the fryer and the grill, which is better for the kids, because then they won't burn themselves as much. So, that's all I have. Any questions?
Okay, planning and zoning, Bonnie.
All right. In your packet are the meeting minutes from our 2 planning and zoning meetings this past month. And also in your packet is our code officer's report, which reflects $688,169 in construction and a total of 190 calls that he handled this month. Of note, before I get to our primary topic, which is the draft ordinance, I want to mention again, April 3rd at 6 o'clock is the Climate Action Plan meeting, where it will be presented town style to the public, followed by question and answer session. So for those watching online or listening, please take a look at the plan. Come prepared with questions. It will be interesting. Also, I want to let you know that our Bee City Committee is currently working on a presentation as part of the Frederickson Library's 2023 Gardening with Nature workshop series. It will be posted on the borough website, and information is also listed on the library website. The workshop is Tuesday, March 21st from 7 to 8:30, and they have titled their workshop, Be Friendly, Plant This and Not That. There is a $5 registration fee, and there is a registration deadline of Monday, March 20th, but on the library website, it did say they would take walk-ins if there is room. So if you're interested in gardening or are a resident that would like to get involved in promoting pollinator-friendly zones in the borough, we would really love to hear from you and invite you to come to their meetings, which are posted on the borough website. And finally, we did close the single-use plastic survey, and we will be discussing the results at our next planning and zoning meeting, which is on March 17th. So for tonight's topic, we have in your packet the draft zoning ordinance, and also I had provided a one-page overview for you of the recent changes made to that ordinance. So tonight we will recommend that the ordinance be forwarded to the county and boroughs planning commissions for final review, we hope. And also we'll recommend advertising a public hearing date for April 12th at 7 o'clock in conjunction with our council meeting. By doing this, potentially, council might be able to adopt the ordinance in April if we don't receive any new substantive comments that would require changes to the ordinance. So we're hoping we've pretty much received everything at this point in time. Some items that I just want to make sure you understand about our recommendations or the overview of changes that we made. One, we are recommending as part of that overview that we pull the Heritage Conservation Overlay Map. Did anybody have any questions about that? It was with regard to instructions in Part 6 on historic structures that might have partial or full demolition.
Will we attempt to come up with a new overlay? Because my understanding is that we had always had reference to a map that didn't exist, and
Correct.
This was an attempt, so we will continue to work on that.
We will.
Okay.
The problem that we were met with is there were so many questions about the process in evaluating and the decision-making that goes into it, who's actually going to be looking at architectural decisions.
So we'll just take out the map, but we'll still keep the language that
The
refers to...
language is all in there, yes. And so since we didn't have a map previously, we thought we're just going to pull the map instead of pulling the language. So we have asked the Planning Commission to evaluate that section, Section 605, along with the map, and come back to Planning and Zoning with some recommended better ideas, I guess, or more acceptable ways to address the issue. There was one more thing that I had commented in the overview. At the time that we wrote the overview, and we had our meeting last week, we did not yet have the floodplain maps. The state this week did just release the maps, yes?
They didn't tell me if they did.
You told me they did.
They said they were going to.
Oh. Oh, okay. They're supposed to come out today? Yesterday. So you're not sure if they did?
If they did, I didn't hear about it yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
If they do, we will put them in, but if they don't, and we adopt this before they're released, then that's not our fault.
right. So we can still go ahead with the adoption. I was assuming we received them and that we would put them in with what we send to the commissions. But we will if we receive them, so, okay. That's all I have. Any questions or comments?
Not a question, Bonnie. I just want to thank you for your persistence.
I
Your
also wanna-
dogged persistence.
I also want to
month
thank
after
you, Bonnie.
month. Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to confirm, I appreciated the overview that we talked about. I found that very helpful, and hopefully we will put that on the website, I think, too, with the draft.
We can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have, I think.
Thank you, Bonnie. The next item is the personnel policy and procedures.
Okay, we are looking for volunteers. We're going to have a vacancy on the zoning hearing board that would expire at the end of 2023, but hopefully whoever is chosen would also continue and do the next term, which would expire in 2026. And we will need to fill a vacancy on the Planning Commission, and that term expires at the end of 2024. So if you yourself are not interested, or in the zoning hearing board or the Planning Commission, pass the word.
Is there an opening on the human, I thought I read
Yes,
there's
there
an
is.
opening on the human.
Do we still have a
Relations
human
Commission.
relations opening too? All right. 3 committees.
Thank you, Michelle. Finance, Sherry.
Good evening, everybody. I'll just talk briefly about our committee and what we've been up to. So we did meet in February on the 24th, and we did discuss a lot of topics around open grants. We have quite a number of grants that are open if those come due all at once. And typically with grants, there's like a percentage that the borough has to pay as a part of the grant agreement. And if that does happen, we might move some money around to cover that. It's more like a cash issue than anything else. But it was just a hot topic, and I appreciated Jared looking at those issues because obviously we don't want to run out of money and have cash available. Some other things we talked about is the possibility of a firefighter tax credit. This is an opportunity for us to adjust how we might incentivize volunteer fire folks to join the fire company and be a volunteer, and there are ways to show appreciation through your tax system to offset some of their costs. It could be like property tax provisions, or we could also take a route where we look at the tax structure and offer kind of like a rebate for folks volunteering. So we talked about that a little bit. The other thing that we talked about was summer employees, because there's a big demand for lifeguards, and for us to be competitive, there was a thinking from the recreation group. These committees talk to each other and send things for other committees to look at, and we talked about what would be a great way to make sure that we offset the cost of securing the lifeguard licensing, because it costs several $100s to get that certification, and if other communities will offset that cost and we don't, then it's hard to attract the lifeguards. Just a few other notes that Jared put here around our auditors. Our auditors from Meyer Dussel were in the week of February 15th through the 20th. They're still working on finalizing our annual audit and are waiting on a few things out of our control to be able to issue reports. And Jared he's engaged with these auditors and expects the final reports to be issued in April. Utility bills were due on February 28th, and our office assistant here has been very busy fielding calls and keeping up with the bills. And one of the things we noticed around the refuge part of our utility bill is that there's a lot more interest in the tag-a-bag program. So that's where you can buy tags and put them on trash bags versus paying like a fixed fee to have your trash picked up. And let's see, and there's just a note here to keep in mind that our refuse rates will be increasing starting in the second quarter of 2023. We also, of note here, is that we received our liquid fuels allocation in the amount a little over $250,000, which is slightly over what we budgeted. And for this evening, what we have is just approval of our checks, so our typical standard thing. There's nothing special here. And I just will make a note that we do meet monthly, and our next meeting is on March 23rd at 8 a.m.
questions for Sherry?
Sherry doesn't even know this. This is literally breaking news. We did just get notice that we are receiving a HERO grant that we applied for, if you recall, hearing about you can use it for a variety of things, including hazard pay, I don't know, HERO pay, something, telling the police officers that they're
Retention for
super
police
great.
officers, yeah.
And also doing additional training and equipment for them. So they just told us late this afternoon that we had received it, and Chief looked it up, and it looks like we got our full amount that we requested, which is over $20,000.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, Borough School District Liaison, have we met since?
Well, I gave an update at the last
thought so,
meeting.
okay.
Yeah. So I don't think we have our next meeting scheduled, but we probably will have maybe one more before the end of the school year. Yeah, so probably in April.
Okay, thank you. Stormwater Authority Liaison.
Well, as Jennifer mentioned, we did discuss in Public Works the landscape decisions that the Stormwater Authority is looking to make. Their meeting is going to be next Tuesday morning. HRG and the landscape architect did provide really good photos of plan options at our last meeting, but they are going to provide a few more graphics that I think will better help the Stormwater Authority evaluate the sight line. They're interested in the sight line from the path to the stream. So we're hoping to have that decision next Tuesday at their meeting regarding the landscaping. The only thing that I am not sure I got this right, I think, didn't we discuss the CCTV project? We did finish the filming of the stormwater pipes.
Yes.
Except for a little bit. And we did buy a new camera system, and Public Works is going to finish that job.
Yeah, there were a few pieces left that the vendor didn't do that weren't in their bid because they weren't in the GIS system. We entertained the option of having them do those for an additional cost, but ultimately decided that since the borough has their own equipment, that would be the better option.
Yeah. So.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you, Bonnie. Capital Region Council of Governments Liaison. Also, Bonnie, do you have anything?
Okay. So we had our COG meeting on February 20th. It was actually quite interesting. They had two speakers on topics. One was crisis communications, and one was a financial wellness program. So I have provided that information to Sarah. The COG auction, which we discussed last year, will be held again this year on July 19th at the South Middleton Township, which is where it was held last year. We were also told that 14 vendors attended the COG joint bid opening. The selected bids were ratified at our meeting on the 20th for the 23-24 year. So for example, because our borough is a member of the COG, our borough gets the benefit of the best pricing that the COG received for example, road salt. So those types of bids were received by the COG. And finally, the report from Cumberland County was that they did allocate $47,000 in real estate tax credits for fire and EMS, which would allow for an $87 to a $250 credit for volunteer fire EMS. So it must be on the application or on your, I don't know.
Each individual has to apply for it.
Okay.
Have to supply a list to
Oh.
which I did.
Oh, good. Okay. So the next meeting is, I don't know if I put it, March 20th. Yes, and Michelle will be our representative at that meeting. Yes. That's it.
Okay, we have now reached the second period of public comment. At this point, if you have comments relating to the action items that are to follow, please come up to the microphone and share your name, address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And then there will be a final public comment period that's open to any comments regardless of topic. So if anyone has any comments about the new business items that are to follow, please come up and share them. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then to the action items. We'll begin with public safety.
Right here. Okay. I move to authorize the advertisement of an ordinance to place stop signs at Enfield, Rutland, and Arlington Streets, Arlington Roads. I know it's both here.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to advertise an ordinance to place stop signs at 3 locations that are kind of currently Ts. Any discussion?
I'll just make a comment. It's like the fastest reaction to public need I've ever seen.
I know, right?
So within a week, we went from a comment about safety to a evaluation of those corners to now this. So, good job.
Great team.
All right, all those in favor of advertising the ordinance to place those stop signs, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay, authorize, okay, I move to authorize the use of G.A. Smith Towing LLC as our towing company.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to authorize the use of G.A. Smith Towing. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay. I move to renew the 2-year memorandum of understanding between the Camp Hill School District and the Camp Hill Police Department.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the MOU between the school district and the police department. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
I move to adopt resolution number 2023-3, the revised Civil Service Commission Rules and Regulations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2023-3 to approve the revised Civil Service Rules of Regulations. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Now you have to move to table.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion to table the adoption of the updated police policies and procedures manual, which is resolution number 2023-2.
Table until next month or table until when?
I think a later date.
I was going to say just, a later date.
As soon as it's
At
ready.
least until Mercedes, the chair, is back.
Okay, so is there a second on that motion to table? Okay, we have a motion and a second to table Resolution 2023-2 for more time for consideration. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Public Works.
I move that we adopt the amended Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adopt the amended Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Before I read the next motion, do I need to read the 2 parcel numbers separately, or can I do it all in one motion?
For the easements.
One's fine. Okay, thank you. I move that we approve the temporary construction easement agreements for pedestrian improvements with compensation of each in the amount of $1,100 for Need J. Miller for the property located at 142 North 32nd Street, tax parcel number 012102731163, as well as Andrew Fichter and Catherine Morrison for the property located at 200 North 32nd Street, tax parcel 012102730022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve these 2 temporary construction easements for pedestrian improvements. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
I move that we award the base bid, bid alternate 1, and bid alternate 2 to Porter Construction and Concrete for the ADA curb ramps project in the amount of $105,860, conditioned upon receipt of required bonds and insurance, and that we decline to award bid alternates 3 and 4.
A second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second then to award the base bid, bid alternate 1 and 2, and to decline bid alternates 3 and 4. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
And then before I make my last motion, is there any issue that the amount of the paving contract was not listed? Or
Should we put it in?
Can I just read it with the amount?
You can read that with the amount.
Okay. I move that we approve the contract with HRG to prepare bid documents for 2023 paving in the amount of $49,700.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the contract with HRG to prepare bid documents for 2023 paving. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, thank you. Parks and Recreation.
I move that we donate a pool pass with a total value up to $184 to Frederickson Library.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to donate the pool pass up to Frederickson Library. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
I move to authorize the sale of items on Municipid in the total amount of $655.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to authorize the sale of items on Municipid in the total amount of $655. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Planning and zoning.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to forward our final zoning ordinance to the county and borough planning commissions.
Second.
Third.
This has been in the works for many, many years. We have a motion and a second and a third and so on to forward the final zoning ordinance to planning commissions. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to advertise a hearing date for the zoning ordinance in conjunction with the council meeting on April 12th at 7:00 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to advertise the hearing date for the zoning ordinance on April 12th at 7 p.m. in conjunction with the council meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Sherry, Finance.
Okay, terrific. I'd like to make a motion for the payments of checks in the amount of $423,415.97.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pay the checks. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We've now reached the third period of public comment. If you have anything you'd like to share with council, please come up and state your name, and you know the rest of the drill. Name, address.
No stranger to the meeting.
Thank you for your continued
Hi,
attendance and
Rich
support.
Vance, 2000 Princeton. I brought this up a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it's time to remind our residents that when they park in their driveway, they can't block the sidewalks. You have the new e-letter.
Yeah.
I mean, put something in there, it should go out in the newsletter. So that's all I really have to say. It
Thank you.
seems to
That's
be
one of the
same
items.
residents every day.
That's one of the items that we continually remind people of, and yes, still see it. Thank you. Other public comments? Okay. Well, it's now time for closing remarks by council, so I will start down this way tonight. Sherry?
Well, usually my comments are like, yay, team. But actually, someone reached out to me right before tonight's council meeting about people fertilizing their lawns. And apparently, we're in that season now where the companies are putting the fertilizer out, but the companies are allowing the fertilizer to go into the roadway by quite a degree, so that when people walk their dogs, especially in our neighborhood on the Country Club hillside, we don't have sidewalks, their dogs and their feet, everything gets coated in these chemicals. So they were looking in the ordinances to find out like what is the issue and like what can we do to enforce and stop this from happening. And there is ordinance language here that says that the penalty would be up to $500 fine for doing that. So I don't know how we go about enforcing this, but I am going to ask them to write down the addresses of these homes, and it typically are at the homes that have the yellow flag. So I just want to raise that to our codes enforcement officer and look for an email with more details. Anyway, yay team, but we got to get the chemicals off the road. And it's not good for, it is carcinogenic, just so everybody here understands that. It's not good for dogs, and it runs right into the Chesapeake Bay. So anyway, I think we should enforce it. It's incumbent upon us to be healthy and happy and not full of cancer.
Thank you. Bonnie?
No comment.
Michelle?
I'm going to yay team. And I just want to say again, I don't know if I say it enough, but I think it all the time, how awesome everybody is and how hard they work and how impressed I am with everybody here and not here, because not everyone's here tonight. But it's just really cool. It's really cool to be on this side and see everything that everybody does, so thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Two things. As I mentioned before, the Public Works Committee has rescheduled its April meeting and will meet on Tuesday, April 11th at 9 a.m. And we will be discussing bids for streetscape. Yeah. So as I said, we are making progress. Okay. And lastly, I just wanted to thank our Climate Action Task Force members, all of them. Not just the Hoovers, all of them. So we have some very smart, intelligent people that have volunteered a lot of their time to make that possible. So thank you.
I have two comments as well. The Community Business and Government Relations Committee meeting that is normally tomorrow is being rescheduled. TBD. It's like no one can come. I don't get it. I don't get why people don't want to come to my meeting, but that's fine. Also, I just want to say, on International Women's Day, I am so proud and thankful to be here with all of you and how much time you devote to everything when we all have so much to do. This is such an amazing group of women.
Yeah, thank you. I have no comments. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the Climate Action team for all of their work, and I look forward to the public town hall. And with that, I will adjourn.